Let's look at John Darby's future, the Antichrist beast, hermeneutically, beginning with the term beast the preterist pegged to be the first century Roman ruler Nero. In one of Daniel's prophetic dreams, we find the figures of 4 great beasts, the first like a lion, a second like a bear, another like a leopard, and a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible. Through the traditional historicist approach, tens of millions of Jews and Christians understand those figures of lion, bear, leopard, and 4th beast to have been fulfilled through the succession of ancient kingdoms of Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and the Roman Empire, because Daniel's prophecy offers such detailed descriptions of those kingdoms that were to gradually unfold over hundreds of years in his future. Googling Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, even in quotes, nets over 100,000 results. Daniel's prophecy also defines the term beast when used in the context of the figurative language of a prophetic dream or vision. Thus he said, the 4th beast shall be the 4th kingdom upon earth. Through an adjacent hermeneutic, we discovered that the only other place those figures are mentioned together in Scripture is in Revelation 13, but as a composite beast, and with the order reversed, perhaps because Daniel's prophecy was forward-looking toward the fulfillment of those kingdoms, while John's prophecy was looking back through time after they were fulfilled. And I saw a beast having 7 heads and 10 horns. That was like a leopard, the feet of a bear, and the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. The 7 heads being 7 successive kingdoms that we will explore, and 10 horns perhaps being the 10 Islamic caliphates, as will become more apparent. The dragon, Satan, gives this beast his seat. The false prophet Muhammad's Islamic kingdom occupies the same geographical area as Daniel's kingdom beast did. Leopard, Greece, Syria, Lebanon, Babylon, Iraq, lion, bear, Medo-Persia, Iran. Now let's take this next verse and break it down part by part. And they worshiped the dragon, followers of the jealous fallen angel, through his messenger Muhammad, deny the Son of God and reject his crucifixion and shed blood as articles of faith in the false prophet Muhammad. They prostrate themselves toward the Quraysh pagans' black stone idol at the Kaaba in Mecca 5 times a day, while praying in the vain repetitions of the heathen, in the names of the Arabian pagan deity Allah and his messenger Muhammad, believing the stone to have been sent down from heaven for them to hold as sacred, just as the Quraysh did before Muhammad. They also engage in thinly veneered pagan Arabian moon, sun, star, and jinn devil worship rituals that Muhammad adopted from his tribe the Quraysh and adapted to fit his new religion. Following is a picture of the Quraysh pagans' Kaaba located in the southwest Arabian desert, about 1,200 kilometers away from the Holy Land of the prophets and patriarchs. And they worship the dragon which gave power unto the beast. Satan gives power to Islam through Western wealth transfer and development and purchase of the petroleum lifeblood of Western consumption and waste-driven economies that turn a blind eye to greedily financing the enemy of all mankind, Islam, and immorally empower the very beast that has been the persecutor and oppressor of God's people for 1,400 years, that is commanded to subjugate all mankind to Muhammad's followers. Just as Muhammad's followers boast, and as the world has witnessed for 1,400 years, and we in the world today for decades and continue to witness in Afghanistan, who indeed is able to make war with the Islamic beast, the Islamic blasphemy replacing the gospel during this falling away in post-Christian Europe, and Iran on the verge of having the nuke, with the Taliban biding time until the U.S. cuts and runs to take over Pakistan's nukes? Who indeed is able to make war with a beast that wears civilian clothing and launches rockets from among the general population? An ununiformed army that is the general population, since all Muslims are expected to engage in jihad or die as hypocrites. They fight in his cause and slay a promise binding on him in the Quran. Of course, patently false regarding the gospel binding anyone to fight and slay Islam, since the gospel commands us to love and bless our enemies, but it is a promise binding on all of Muhammad's true followers in the Quran. Chapter 9 being second to last in order as recited by Muhammad, thus abrogating all prior contradictions, particularly from his early Mecca drivel, such as no compulsion in religion. Summarized Al-Bukhari, Al-Jihad, the holy fighting in Allah's cause with full force of number and weaponry, is given the utmost importance in Islam and is one of its pillars. By jihad, Islam is established, Allah's word is made superior, which means none has the right to be worshipped but Allah, and his religion, Islam, is propagated. Jihad is an obligatory duty in Islam on every Muslim, and he who tries to escape from this duty dies with one of the qualities of a hypocrite. Middle East nukes may give one pause to contemplate some Old Testament prophecy. And it shall come to pass in that day that I will seek to destroy all the nations that come against Jerusalem. And I will pour upon the house of David and upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and supplications, and they shall look upon me whom they have pierced. And this shall be the plague wherewith the Lord will smite the people that have fought against Jerusalem. Their flesh shall consume away while they stand upon their feet, and their eyes shall consume away in their holes, and their tongues shall consume away in their mouth, while they stand upon their feet. And I will show wonders in the heavens and in the earth, blood and fire and pillars of smoke, before the great and the terrible day of the Lord come. And pillars, Tamara, pillar, column, palm like spreading at top, pillars of smoke. The ruler of Iran, Ahmadinejad, who is about to have nuclear weapons in his possession, believes it's his responsibility to create a period of murder, mayhem, and misery unprecedented in human history to usher in the 12th Imam or Mahdi, with absolutely no interest in the casualties to be numbered among his own people in such a suicidal effort. Now, remembering John's assignment, write the things which thou hast seen, and the things which are, and the things which shall be hereafter. So we are to consider the world from the point in time of John's first century. Employing this ethnographic hermeneutic, we recognize that Bible prophecy isn't about New York City, but about the Holy Land and God's people. In Revelation 17, John details a history of the succession of all kingdoms, the 7 heads of the beast, from the beginning of mankind to this present day, from the perspective of John's first century world. In Strong's, whole world, the portion of the earth inhabited by the Greeks, in distinction from the land of the barbarians, the Roman Empire. And there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen. As we'll discover later, the term beast and king are interchangeable in this passage, and we can easily assign individual kings as representative of each kingdom beast. Tens of millions of Christians identify the first 6 of these kings as 5 are fallen: Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and 1 is Daniel's 4th dreadful kingdom beast, the Roman Empire that ruled in John's day as the one that is to John. While millions of Christians agree with the identities of those first 6 kings, They go on to throw out hermeneutics in the historical record because it doesn't fit in with John Darby's end-time boogeyman, willy-nilly switching from kingdoms to a man. But what does history tell us about the next king through a consistent hermeneutic within the traditional historicist approach? The other is not yet come. The historical fact of the matter is that the Roman Empire of John's day was later conquered by the Islamic First Jihad, which took Jerusalem in 639. Thus Islam is the seventh king and the seventh head of the leopard, bear, lion, beast. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. The Islamic First Jihad lasted a relatively short 152 years, 5 prophetic months in day-year language is suggested in Revelation 9, during which it conquered and subjugated nearly the whole known world before being turned back by the Battle of Tours, France, as date pinned mathematically by Daniel's 1335. The beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. That precedes the verse we just reviewed. Characteristic of the beast that was to John's whole world before the Roman Empire, Greece, Medo-Persia, Babylon, were pagan empires that persecuted and oppressed God's people while guided by Satan, and thus were of the bottomless pit. The Roman Empire began as a pagan empire, and in John's day did its share of persecuting Jews and Christians. However, it eventually embraced and even advanced Christianity, though unfortunately to a lesser extent the ecclesia, and the persecution of God's people subsided. Christ was revealed during the Roman Empire. Shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. The Roman Empire was eventually conquered by the false prophet Muhammad's Islamic Empire that was and still is guided by Satan, and thus ascended out of the bottomless pit. And just as those pagan empires before the Roman Empire, the false prophet Muhammad's kingdom beast has persecuted and oppressed God's people since the 7th century. The Dar el-Salam versus the Dar el-Harb. The house of peace versus the house of war. If you are a non-Muslim, you are in the house of war. And while you may not be at war against Islam, Islam has been at war against you for 1400 years. Muhammad's followers commanded to subjugate the world to prostrating toward the Quraysh pagans' black stone idol in the southwest Arabian desert 5 times a day and engage in thinly veneered pagan Arabian worship rituals. Here's Muhammad's followers clamoring around the black stone idol, hoping to get an opportunity to touch it or even kiss it as Muhammad did. Subjugate the whole world. Associated Press. Residents of a southern Somalia town who do not pray 5 times a day will be beheaded, an Islamic court official said Wednesday, adding the edict will be implemented in 3 days. How's that for tribulation? It might help some Western lazy boy chair reclined, John Darby-styled futurists overcome suggestion that great tribulation is reserved for the future if they booked a vacation to anywhere in John's whole world outside of that protected by the democracy of the Jewish state of Israel. And go into perdition. And the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are and shall be tormented day and night forever and ever. Muhammad's Islamic Empire as the 7th head of the leopard, bear, lion, beast, the Islamic First Jihad being wounded to death in the Battle of Tours, but his deadly wound was healed by Western wealth transfer and oil purchase. Western nations financing the second Islamic Jihad in the image of the first Islamic Jihad. Jihad is the pinnacle of worship in Islam. Would Isaac Newton have missed this if he were here today? The beast that was and is not, being wounded to death with a sword, he is the 8th and is of the 7. He was therefore a collateral part of the 7th. Whether you agree or disagree with this exegesis does not change the matter of fact that the succession of kingdoms detailed here is not idle speculation or guesswork theology, but rather concrete matters of historical record. The two-horned beast of the Crusades and British Mandate held power for brief spells, but always before or in the presence of the Islamic leopard bear lion beast. Please visit beholdthebeast.com for verse-by-verse exegesis of Revelation 13, or christianeschatology.com for this overview.